now on plenary 3 for those of you who are following, and it's entitled Towards Co-Creating Multi-Stakeholder Platforms for Ensuring the Recovery and Development of Social Enterprises Towards Leaving No One Behind in Building Back Better. So we have a very packed and very exciting program for the next 1 hour and 15 minutes. Just a quick note on the session, just so that we're all on the same page. So this plenary will be discussing the evolving multi-stakeholder platforms for ensuring the recovery and development of social enterprises towards leaving no one behind and building back better, or in other circles now, we're talking about building back fairer. Diba, Doc Lisa? That's what we were discussing. During this pandemic, I think we've all experienced the economic downturn, and social enterprises have not been spared from these. But even though many are challenged at this time, there have been several social enterprises that have also been at the forefront of innovation, and they've taken on successful programs to pivot and to be able to start initiatives on very important themes. So we'll be discussing 4 themes, and we have 4 exciting panelists to share with us how they've been able to pursue their mission even in the midst of the pandemic. So we have health for all, decent work for all in sustainable value chains, rural revitalization, youth and social entrepreneurship, and finally, technological innovations towards sustainable development. Just as a reminder, so this is just an overview, basically, to all of the 4 themes that we discussed, and I would like to invite everyone then to follow through in going to the sub-plenary sessions to discuss the platforms that will be introduced during this session. Just to quickly run over, we have 3 objectives for the session. First of all is to introduce the significant initiatives led by the social enterprises in our panel. I will be introducing them to you shortly. As I mentioned in the 4 themes, and they will be sharing with us what they have been doing prior to the pandemic, the missions that they have been pursuing, as well as the solutions that they have come up with, and how they have now adjusted or reconfigured to respond to the drastically changed context that we see now in the world over. The second objective is to introduce the evolving multi-stakeholder platforms around themes that we mentioned. So that's health for all, decent work for all, sustainable value chains, rural revitalization, youth and social entrepreneurship, and technological innovations. That's quite a lot, but I think we'll get more details as we move along. And these will be, they will be sharing pathways towards leaving no one behind, building back fairer, and achieving the SDGs. And finally, on a more practical note, once we've been all educated on what these themes are about, it's to really see where you think your organization or you as an individual can explore opportunities and also identify challenges in setting up multi-stakeholder platforms in those themes, and assist the social enterprise sector and the poor to recover towards inclusive recovery, building back fairer, and achieving our SDGs. Okay, so that's it for me. I just want to quickly introduce. So we have 4 distinguished guests. The first one, our first presenter, is on the Health for All platform. He is Mr. Nasit Majidi, who is the chairman of the board and the executive director of Yayasan Dompet Dhuafa, a leading Indonesian nonprofit organization that helps underprivileged society to have more social dignity. He is a respected author, media practitioner, and leader of civil society and the business community in Indonesia. He is a Ramon Magsaysay awardee for 2017. And Yayasan Dompet Dhuafa works to uplift the poor through community empowerment programs and social entrepreneurship initiatives, including one on health that combines a community-based health approach with cross-sectoral collaboration. So Dompet Dhuafa is the convener of the Evolving Health Health for All platform. So he will be talking about that. Our next distinguished speaker will be on the platform for decent work for all in sustainable value chains. Ms. Kanika Ahuja is a serial social entrepreneur with a demonstrated history of working in sustainable development and sustainable fashion industry. She is passionate in the advocacy of circular economy and fair trade initiatives. A certified trainer for livelihood creation by UNHCR and ILO, and a mentor for Atal Tinkering Labs, Niti Aayog, Government of India, among others. She is also a leader of the World Fair Trade Organization Asia and a co-convener for the Platform of Decent Work for All in Sustainable Value Chains. Our next speaker is Ms. Zhang Laning. She is a leading researcher and educational organization called Sources for Action, which is the outgrowth of the rural reconstruction movement in China, and also affiliated with the Sihai Environmental Protection Foundation as one of its founders. She will be talking about educational innovation of sustainable living and action research of ecological community experiment, wherein they are building a more resilient international localized youth community by developing a series of action learning programs of ecological wisdom and cultural inheritance. She will be leading the platform on rural revitalization, youth, and social entrepreneurship. And finally, last but not least, our fourth member of the panel, leading the platform for technological innovations, and we'll be talking about artificial intelligence and how it's going to help us build back fairer, especially for social enterprises. We have Mr. Howard Ling, who is the Chief Consultant of Social Enterprise Business Center in Hong Kong. Howard began his social entrepreneurship journey in 2004. He founded and consulted over 30 social enterprises in the region and all over the world. And he also serves as a consultant or advisor to many foundations in education institutions in Hong Kong and Macau. He was awarded the Medal of Honor by the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region and the Hong Kong Humanity Award in 2017 for his dedicated public and community services. As mentioned, his organization, Chapi Technologies, co-convenes the Technological Innovations for Sustainable Development platform. So we have quite a distinguished panel. And without further ado, I'd like us to direct our attention to Pak Nasir Majidi, who will be talking about the platform on health for all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, for all. First of all, I have to introduce to you that my institution or my foundation is, we call it Dompet Dhuafa. Dompet Dhuafa means wallet of the poor. So actually, Dompet Dhuafa concerning to support all of the poverty problem in Indonesia and also in Asia. Today, we want to talk about health for all platform, but Dompet Dhuafa actually is not only concerning on health, but health is just part of our concern, and we concern to the economic, to the social, and health is one of our concern, maybe the biggest concern in Dompet Dhuafa. As we know that for the time being is about 400 million people in worldwide have a lack access to the health facility. So Dompet Dhuafa in Indonesia, as you know, more than 40% of people here is underprivileged. We call it underprivileged based on the definition of World Bank. So healthcare is being a major concern in Dompet Dhuafa program. As we know, the poverty trap, we have triple squeeze. First, low productivity, and then we have a low income, and the result is we have low health and education. So the 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 future of the nation when uh, when we have low productivity and low income, very dangerous, health and low education. So Dompet Dhuafa concerning to model, we concern economic empowerment and social education and healthcare service, and the third is advocacy of works. We all has spent a lot of concern, budget, and effort to minimize the effect of the poor, the poverty into better health. So in the economic empowerment, we have a holistic wellness approach. We call it healthy diet, personal immunity, physical workout, etc. And the local and the medicine production, we have a local and organic product, opening market, providing working capital and legal for alternative. And this is the most interesting because we use it, the blended financing for primary clinic and hospital, which is not really a social enterprise can manage using blended financing. We call it blended financing because we blend a social fund using religious fund or corporate social responsibility fund and social investment fund. Sometimes we have a difficulty to support the poor to have a health facility because even the government social network or healthcare insurance cannot cover uh, their premium. So Dompet Dhuafa come with uh, religious fund and some with corporate CSR fund. The uh, program to support the poor and to get good health, uh, make it happen. Our healthcare model is divided into three uh, type. The first is area of services. We start from promotive, preventive, curative, as usual, and the second is health for all, what we call it holistic wellness, and then community empowerment, and the third, as I mentioned before, is blended finance. And our activities in Jakarta is basically community health and 40 community health station and for services, we still we have a social fund and a religious fund and a social investment fund. With this sustainability model, like triangles, we can manage sustainable to have facility to support the poor people. Here, part of our clinic and activities in Indonesia. So our clinic and hospital spread from the west to the east, from the Sumatra to Papua, and the services is different between clinic, social, hospital, and other facility based on the need of the community at the area. Uh, just for sharing, like using a boat or something, and not only in the office, but also in the local house, etc. For the bigger services, not only clinic, we have developed some hospital in Sumatra and Java, and later in outside Java, in Kalimantan. We using social fund and blending wakaf and social investment to establish Dompet Dhuafa Hospital for support the poor people. This is combining from government insurance and also from the zakat. We call it zakat as a religious fund obligation for every Muslim to spend 2.5% of their income to support for poor people. We have almost 11 hospital that we can use to serve the Dhuafa, or we call it the poor people or Dhuafa. Regarding the COVID relief for the time being, for the situation, we have some program. The first is education about COVID. This is using any platform, direct and indirect. And then we have food distribution. We distribute a lot of food across the nation. Then we also develop thousands of disinfection chambers, distribute into the public facilities and hand washing facilities as well. Also, we concern how to make the economic for poor people sustainable. So we have training for small farm. Also, using our clinic and hospital, we have rapid testing or PCR testing. The last is self-isolation facilities to the people that we have to concern. Regarding survival in the pandemic, Dompet Dhuafa partnering with airlines. For example, all of the Lion Air and Air Asia having tests using all the network of Dompet Dhuafa clinic across the nation, and also schools, workplaces, and to do massive testing in the public area. And second is the providing self-isolation facilities, as I mentioned before, and providing online or vehicle healthcare services. The fourth is enhancing health philanthropy. The last is MSP platform for healthcare. We have four. The first is a learning exchange. The second is projecting collective impact. And the third is the policy advocacy. And the last is developing partnership and generating resources. I think it's the short presentation that we have, because the moderator have noticed me that the time is up. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Nasif Majidi, I really love the presentation about the holistic wellness approach, that it's not just about treating people when they're sick, but really making sure that they are healthy to begin with. And also the very remarkable and innovative way of approach to funding. So it's really faith in action, it's service, and living out the values. Okay, so we'll move on to our next speaker, Ms. Kanika Ahuja, who's going to talk about decent work for all in sustainable value chains. 15 minutes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Hello, everyone. I'm here to talk about the platform that we will be launching now on decent work for all in sustainable value chains. I have been working in Conserve India since the last 5 years, and this is an example that we wanted to bring up, how we can have decent work while creating sustainable value chains. At Conserve India, we have created a proprietary technology to recycle and upcycle non-recyclable plastic waste, single-use plastics, into a new type of material, which is like vegan leather. And by doing this, we have upcycled over 36,000 kgs of plastic waste, diverting it from landfill and diverting it from reaching our oceans. We have trained 1,400 urban poor in different prospects of the supply chain, from collecting the waste to processing it, manufacturing it into products and sales. And by doing this, we have increased the incomes of the urban waste pickers by 150%. Plastic bags has become a global issue today. And with 1 trillion plastic bags being produced in a year worldwide, this has become a global pandemic in itself. And in the it takes 1,000 years for even one plastic bag to fully degrade. India in itself, we generate 15,000 plastic bags and in tons every day, which is the main cause of plastic pollution, and it breaks down and it's getting leached into our air and soil and creating land and water pollution. Our solution is to create a circular model where we use this plastic waste and upcycle it into a material. This material is then used to create finished products, which are then sold in the domestic and Western markets. These sales are able to generate a fair income for everybody employed in the supply chain. And these products can then themselves be recollected to be recycled, and in closing, making it a closed loop system. These are examples of some of the products that we create. So handbags, corsets, footwear, lampshades, all of this can be created, and it can look uniquely wonderful by using all plastic waste created from landfill sites. This is the circular model that we follow, and how we want to take it into the future. So this is a collection point, and first we make upcycled plastic packaging with it. This packaging can then be collected back at the collection point and can be upcycled into creating fashion accessories, bags, footwear, jackets. All of this can be collected again and made into upcycled plastic home products like wallpapers, lampshades, and ultimately all of this can be recycled again to create construction tiles, casings, and fittings. By doing this, by creating the circular loop, we can extend the life cycle of plastics by at least 10 to 20 years. And thereby it gives us more time to deal with the plastic problem. Some other ongoing innovations that we have in the sustainable value chain space is textile recycling. We're working on a low carbon method for textile recycling and blending them with natural fibers for increased strength. This material can then also be used to create apparel, garments, footwear, bags. Then another project is on creating sanitary pads from local natural fibers. Sanitary pads and menstrual hygiene is an issue in mostly all Asian countries. And using natural fibers and the diversity of fauna that we already have there, we can use bamboo and tendu natural fibers to create these high absorption sanitary pads. We're also working on innovating from food waste and agricultural waste and extracting fibers from orange peels and agricultural waste and convert them into paper and packaging material. How we do this is by a strong sense of capacity building. All of our projects are based on fair trade, and we work with bottom of the pyramid communities and train them in the different processes through the supply chain, which would enable them to become independent businesses of their own. We work with three target groups essentially. First is refugees. We've been working with a group of Afghani refugees since the last 3 years now, and we have developed them into a self-help group. This self-help group is then supported by Conserve's marketing efforts. Conserve has an experience of 15 years in exports, and leveraging this marketing effort, we are able to sustain these self-help groups. We also work with grassroots recyclers, which are the waste pickers essentially, and we train them in the kinds of waste that can be collected and used as a resource to earn a sustainable livelihood for themselves. And we also work with local artisans who help craft our products and use traditional crafts of embroidery and weaving to add some beauty to our products. For our COVID response, our immediate response was going out into the communities that we work with and distributing essential needs that they had of food, ration, sanitization supplies. And after that, for our livelihoods project, since all of our groups were very, very hit, all of our production lines were disturbed, it became essential to come up with a product. Masks were in very short shortage. And then WFTO Asia, the World Fair Trade Organization Asia, had come up with a brilliant plan of collaborating Asian efforts from all of the social enterprises in Asia who had these supply chains, and quickly built their capacity to develop the people's mask, which was made by the people and for the people. These people's masks were distributed to our communities as well as local political leaders to gain momentum to this movement. We also created a fair fund, which is a long-term relief action that we have taken. This fair fund can now be utilized by grassroots enterprises to restart their operations. This fund was generated by fundraising from corporates and individual donations. Now coming to the platform that we're very excited to create. This is one of the 4 platforms that ICEA will be launching. It's the platform on decent work and sustainable value chains. We will be working on 3 particular SDGs for this platform with a goal to accelerate social enterprises to build back better. SDG 5, which is achieving gender equality and empower all girls and women, will be led by the Asia South Pacific Association for Basic and Adult Education. SDG 8 on decent work and economic growth will be led by World Fair Trade Organization Asia, and it works on a lot on the principles of fair trade and how the wholesome model of fair trade incorporates decent work. SDG 13, responsible production and consumption, would be a parameter that would be led by WTO Asia's partner organizations who have been innovating in sustainable value chains and through using technologies in natural fibers, upcycling, and how we can, and working on scaling these operations while teaching new social enterprises how they can build their businesses while incorporating these aspects. This platform will be for social enterprises, fair trade enterprises, and social enterprise and fair trade enterprise support organizations. Me and Conserve will be supporting these efforts in the co-creation of the platform, the ideation about what this platform should be like. The resource development for creating sustainable value chains. Conserve has 15 years of experience in sustainable value chains, and this is where we feel we can contribute the most. And to enable acceleration of social enterprises to fair trade enterprises. This is an aspect that we're very excited about, and I would love for you all to join the next sub-plenary where we talk more about this. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kanika. Such an amazing technology that you have here that's really, really important at this time, because it's been said also that the pandemic has created a lot more waste in terms of single-use plastic. So we really need to have these intentional and mindful solutions as we protect health, but at the same time, not at the expense of sustainable goals and also the environment. So thank you so much for that presentation. So next up, for the rural revitalization, youth and social entrepreneurship, we have Laning. You ready?
Yes. Okay.
All right.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lan Ying from the Sources of Action, which is outgrowth of the big rural reconstruction network in China. This network is considered as a social movement process, which include a diversified social groups. And these groups interact, communicate, and very inclusive, and aiming to move towards mass democracy on the big platform of rural reconstruction. But it is also inherited from the century-old rural reconstruction practices in the 21st century, and constitute the germination and pioneering of rural reconstruction. Therefore, today what I'm going to share is linked with the history, but also share what we learned and the insights from this 100 years of rural reconstruction and leading to the 21st century's movement. And the third is why we move from rural reconstruction to rural revitalization, and inherited the traditional wisdom as well as looking forward with modern technology. And this is really leading for our platform formation, the rationale for us to promote the youth and rural revitalization and youth role by means of social enterprise to bring for the future of the villages. Next. And yeah, I think this is not the updated version, but I would say there's a 3 waves of rural reconstruction movement in the history since 1840s until now. Why I bring back to 100 years, because 1814 is a marking changing point of China's history, is that the Opium War happened in 1840. China had experienced drastically change for 100 years since Opium War. And this is a period of profound change, impact in the rural areas as well. So in the 20th century, the villages that was originally self-sufficient in food, clothing, housing, transportation, turned to be negative in the process of modernity, while the villages that were not originally problem become problem in modern times. The root cause is that capitalism has changed the external environment of agriculture, rural areas, and farmers to a great extent dependent on the market. And depending on the market, also resulting in the adjustment of the planting structure, the increase of commodity rate, the decline of self-sufficiency of small-scale farmers' economy, and the monetization of income in the rural areas. So during this period, there's a number of people from the rural elites and intellectuals, and started with some of the action trying to solve this problem. The earliest two of them are, are considered now as the social enterprise, earliest social entrepreneurs in China. Their name is on the PowerPoint. One is Zhang Jian, the other is Lu Zuofu. Zhang Jian was the top scholar in the late Qing dynasty, which means beginning of the 20th century. Because he saw the impact on the rural village life, he resigned from his official positions and went back to his hometown, which is named Nantong, where he started his Nantong experiments. So he promoted cotton, improved varieties, and promoted planting as raw materials based for the cotton textile enterprise. Then he founded more than 20 enterprises in the areas of supporting local agricultural development, local industrial operations. Then he used the benefits gained from economic activities for local cultural, educational, health, and social services, which formed a sustainable social and economic development of Nantong model. So he's recognized as the champion industrialist, the earlier pioneer in China's cotton and textile field, but also considered as the first local social entrepreneurs in China. But on the right side, actually Lu Zuofu is in the 1930s, 20 years later than him. But he also followed Zhang Jian's pattern of gaining economic independence by setting up industrial transportation companies, and then carried out a series of social development in response to social needs on the basic his economic gains. So he has his own thought of modernization for rural areas, which means safer, more secured on food, and more beautiful for the living environment, more happier life for people. So his modernization is for the rural modernization. So this is the first wave. And second wave, let's go to the next PPT, is led by Dr. Y.C. James Yan and Liang Shuming. These two scholars had a very contrast background. Dr. Yan got his education in the US, political science, but Liang Shuming had no college education. He self-studied Chinese culture and Western culture. So they take different paths to do the rural construction. So Dr. Yan did the Dingxian experiment. So he developed a fourfold program to respond the problem of rural areas at that time, which is poverty, illiteracy, illness, and inertia. Of course, now we are facing for environmental issues, but at that time, this fourfold program had been developed as a model in China. Later on, has been expanded in the Philippines, then to other African and Latin American regions. But Liang Shuming, he studied, compared the Western culture and Eastern culture. He realized the strength of Eastern culture is more emphasized on inner cultivation for the kindness, for the society. But he also sees that the Asian, especially Chinese community in the rural areas, need to have more collective institutional development. So at that time, farmer cooperative was very actively introduced to China. But the more important, he was able to develop a kind of education based for self-governance and village level and township level. So it's really applying the rural culture for local governance. Yeah. He wrote a lot of books on rural construction theories, which form many foundations for current rural construction movement. So this is the second wave. The third wave is in the past 20 years, led by Professor Wen, and studied a lot of history, tracing back to the 100 years. But we are able to establish 5 programs. One is to mobilize thousands of youth students actively to participate in rural construction work. And 1-year-long rural training for youth was developed and carried on in the past 15 years. We also launched Love Hometown program, mobilize people from all walks of the life to participate in rural cultural revitalization. And besides, I think we talk about social enterprise. And in the past 15 years, we already promoted about various dimensions on social enterprise development, including CSAs and city service center to support migrant workers, and also the farmer cooperatives. So we have a nationwide farmer cooperative network to promote organic farming, to promote cultural revitalization and mutual help. So this is a 5 program, which is considered as a current rural reconstruction movement. So, why we are moving from the rural construction to the revitalization? So we see the modernization, industrialization had a greater impact on the rural areas. So at the beginning of 20th century and beginning of 20th century, we are repeating the similar impact on the destruction of rural areas. So, but by learning that, we realize rural areas is very complex organism. In the long process of formation, a complete complex ecosystem has been constructed. So if we're looking the village areas as the space carriers, the natural environment, the economic environment, the social environment of the village comprehensively act on farmers' production lives through the mechanism of materials circulation, energy flow, and information transmission. So we see it's a very ecological, sound, sustainable village area in the traditions. But we also see another important of the different key learnings is that with long history of farming, the communities have developed their own social norms and self-governing system, dealing with the nature, with ecological beliefs and sustainable use, which is summarizing we talk about household rationality and community rationality. So in the past 20 years, when we are facing crisis, for example, in the year 2008, as well as when we're facing the COVID-19, we realize how resilient the rural areas, which if they're still maintain their relatively self-reliance production system and life, and they are quite resilient to have that. So they develop their kind of self-protection, benefiting, sharing. So so it's kind of important for us to really to achieve the village sustainability. But currently we live in a dilemma of civilization paradox. We choose rapid economic growth, rapid urbanization, rapid consumption, which cost us the rapid environmental pollution, the rapid decline and disappearance of rural areas, and the rapid interruption of a long history of culture in China. So we are facing a critical time at this moment. So crisis indicated we are facing by American scholar John Cobb said, our civilization is speeding towards self-destruction. So we're talking about what we are doing by now is self-destruction. It is a fact of life that we need changes deeply enough to stop the collapse of civilization as a whole, or at least to slow down it. So we must change. In China, in the year 2007, we already start its transition towards eco-civilization. The strategy of ecological civilization construct requires us to actively explore the ecological strategy and path for pursuing the optimal production to the optimal life. Just like Professor Wen believed, what he said is that the ecological civilization emphasizes a civilization form that transits the traditional industrial civilization and takes diversity as its connotation to consciously return to nature. So in year 2007, China launched rural revitalization strategy, which is the important foundation to realize eco-civilization in rural areas. And that time, so rural reconstruction moves towards rural revitalization and mobilize youth to go back to the hometown to support agricultural development and social development. From my point of view, it is also a transition from rural reconstruction to rural revitalization, looking at the issues we are facing in the rural areas. So now returned youth, next page, had played a key role in bringing dynamic to the empty rural village, which is caused in the past 20 years of outflow of labor, of exploitation of natural resources, and land use, land resources for urbanization. So their involvement to support agricultural food system development, natural resources management, as well as the cultural revitalization is kind of, they play a bridging role. So the use in the past 15 years has been done quite a lot. If you look at the picture, they back to the agricultural, organic farming through CSA, working with farmer cooperatives. They also trying to involve with different institutions and the marketing system like food system, farmer markets. So the youth play a very critical role to learn the traditional wisdom, but also utilize the modern technology to support the agricultural development, the rural revitalization, cultural revitalization in the rural areas. So the COVID-19 has rapidly revenged the world, giving us a heavy knock on our head. I think the knowledge of virus make us need to re-examine the relationship between our current lifestyle and human immune system and health. So the youth start looking at traditional wisdom on the solar pattern, seasonals to adopt for the health improvement, and also the food culture, what kind of eating the food and the local areas produced and local season, right season.
Laning, just want to remind you we need to
Yeah.
wrap up already because we still have another.
I'm finished. So, so it is hoped that our the next page. So we three organizations, no PRM and Sources for Action start launching that the rural revitalization youth and social enterprise, hoping that youth play a role, bridging role, but they also reflect on their experience and be innovative for the rural revitalization. So with that, I think it's really critical because Asia countries are all agricultural-based country with large population of peasants and farmers. Rural revitalization will help us to have a less safe places to have a healthy life and happy life. So it's for us to help ourselves. If we go to the rural revitalization, it's not really to help the farmers, but it's help ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laning. So many great insights, especially the the really educational background on the history of rural reconstruction. I think my takeaway there was really the shift of focus from urban culture to rural culture, and really being able to revitalize, because there's a lot of insight, there's a lot of wisdom in the rural way of life, and perhaps that's also where the slow movement, the slow way of living is also emerging at this time. So thank you so much for that really full presentation. Now we move on to Howard, and from the rural countryside to now artificial intelligence.
Thank you, Anna. So let me start my PowerPoint. Okay, I will be watchful of the time just to leave some room for the participant to ask questions. So I will say, good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure and honor to present the topic about artificial intelligence. And I have added extra word of social intelligence. And I will tell you more about what Jati technology social enterprise is about and how we bridge these two intelligences together. I guess what I would like to start with the AI, which is the artificial intelligence. There is a concept of AI plus. The artificial intelligence itself is just a tool. What do we mean by plus is to add on the applications, or what we call as the problem-solving approach, that we will be able to identify a list of problems so that artificial intelligence can add on. In the examples that I show, that can be applied to driving, music, farming, medical checkup, auto retailing, instant translations, and augmented reality. So these plus applications make artificial intelligence interesting. But how that is related to social enterprise, and how do we cope with this even in the COVID situations? This is something that I'm going to share. In this particular example, this is no longer a movie scenes or anything that is in the tale. It is now happening in Germany, that this robot is helping the elderly home over there to be the concierge, to understand their behaviors and to monitor their health in the place with the robot already happening in the world. So this is how you can apply AI into the setting of social intelligence in the case of elderly care. But this is just one example. Definitions of artificial intelligence can be described as the next industrial revolutions, and is trying to bring or change the way human beings interact with technologies. And there are some statistics about the growth of this sector. But why I come up with a term called social intelligence? Because when I heard about this artificial intelligence all the time, it's about technology, it's about programming, it's about how good and how powerful the computer is. But one thing that is missing that I always see is the social intelligence. It's about enhancing primal empathy, sensing and others' inner state, empathetic accuracy, knowing and others' feelings and thoughts, and how that social recognition matters to the community that we are living in, or understanding the complicated social situations. So I started the Jati technology company a few years ago with the partnership of SenseTime. SenseTime is the artificial intelligence company in Hong Kong, founded by the Chinese U Professor Tong. And then he further developed that into a very big artificial intelligence company. But 2 years ago, he started the first artificial intelligence curriculum for the educations of the primary school and the secondary schools in China, Macau, and Hong Kong. And I'm responsible for the Hong Kong and Macau areas. This is one snapshot that I took from the learning platform that we teach to those primary school and the secondary school students. So people will ask why so early? Because in China, we are lack of 5 million talents of artificial intelligence nowadays. So we are looking for 5 million talents just in China to fulfill those tasks that will be able to make the next industrialization. So if we can get these younger talents to study this technology at the early age, they will be able to develop whether they want to develop that into the further study. So that's why I have the AI and the STEM idea. So STEM education is about science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. You know, this has been very popular in Hong Kong and in China and in Macau for over 10 years. But how do they make good use of this knowledge is to add on AI applications, and hopefully that will let them know more about the impacts of this technology. At the same time, my emphasis in my education platform, when I partnered with SenseTime, I told Professor Tong that, you know, what is missing in the AI curriculum is the SI element, which is the social intelligence elements. Rather than giving them technology in the first day of lecture, why not telling them, expanding their horizons of what is happening around the world in terms of social intelligence? That can be done in a simply community visit, social enterprise visit. Look at what problems that social enterprise are solving. Can technology be part of that solution? So this is what I'm trying to do. In the case, in this particular case for the music in Japan, you know, when the Pope visited Japan, that music played in front of Pope is designed by AI, but that AI is not coming from the air. Actually, it's based on the traditional patterns and the music traditions that they have in Japan. Another example that this is a social enterprise that I helped incubated in Chinese U is about autism. You know, how do you read the minds of autism at the early age with the eyeball movement plus the brain wavelength? So when I present this case to the primary school students and to the secondary school students, they will ask one question, because we have social inclusions curriculum in Hong Kong. So that means students with special education needs are studying with all other children in the same classroom. In most oftentimes, they will be separated into another group. Then teachers will pay more attention. But in this AI and SI scenario, they can interact with each other and learn from each other. So instead of putting labels into these children, now they are appreciating the differences and ask themselves what technology can help them learn better. This is another example that I took the pictures in school. You know, can you imagine that you can put a boxing ring in school, putting the gym in school, putting the coffee bar in school, and putting the elderly bed in school? And this is happening in Hong Kong now. When I developed this curriculum with them, I asked them one question. You know, school is more like a mirror of the community. If you can learn this and touch this and meet the people at the early stage, you ask yourself, how can you use all this setting and make the data possible by analyzing what is the impact and what you can do next? You know, in the case of the elderly bed, we are not just putting the bed there and ask them to design. We are inviting the elderly nearby the school, coming to the school to share what their pain points are. And these students are listening. And the elderly are being the teachers to teach them, you know, what is happening in life. And the school is no longer a school with the gate and the doors. It is become like an open school that you welcome the neighborhood and the community to consider school as part of the solution rather than part of the community. So this is the beauty of AI and SI that I'm trying to share. In terms of cross-sector collaboration, that also invites other business opportunity, because now I have the reason to invite business entrepreneurs to visit the schools. For example, I invite the former CEO of Starbucks going to this school to visit the barista, to visit this coffee shop, to give them advice and to share the professional knowledge and how they can use setting to make it better. I am inviting entrepreneurs of the of the physical gyms, that they can go there and to pass on the knowledge. So it's all about knowledge transfer that will enable them to learn better and prepare them for a better world. So there's a saying, I call this as connect all sectors with compassions, and then we can build that social inclusion to data together. Some people will say, no, we have to go somewhere to find the big data. I say, no, the social inclusion data happens here. You are collecting lots of data in school day by day. And it depends on whether you want to analyze it and whether you want to engage your students to analyze it. So I would say artificial intelligence and social intelligence is all about education. And I thank you for your attention and time, and I look forward to your questions. So I'll pass the floor to Anna. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Howard. That is a really amazing concept about social intelligence and how no amount of technology can solve the problems if we cannot put ourselves in the shoes of other people and really extend our compassion and our empathy.
Thank you.
It's been a really, really amazing past hour for the presentation. So we're now opening the floor for questions. I'm sure there's so many of you who want to pick the brains of our panelists. I actually have 3 here that have been placed on the chat box. The first one, any one of the panelists can answer. What would be your suggestion to someone who wants to start similar projects to yours right now in the time of the COVID-19 scenario? I suppose they're talking about all of the restrictions in terms of mobility and the challenges with logistics and funding. But I'm sure if there's a will, there's a way. So we'd love to hear from our panelists. This is from Prashant, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you. So, thanks, Anna. Maybe I start first.
Yes, please go ahead.
So thanks, Bashan, for the questions. I will just speak on the behalf of the education sector that I am representing. I would say, these COVID situations, if you are about to start this AI and SI thing and the education curriculum, I think it's the best of time, because this is the moment that, for example, now we are using Zoom for the conferencing, and the schools are also adapting to their new way of teaching. So they are getting used to all this online medium to do this, instead of traveling 1,000 miles to do exchange now. So they can now stay at one place and connect them to the other parts of the world. And at the same time, government is putting lots of resources. They can cut certain budgets on other things, but the education side, because there's another new demand. So I think that is drawing more funding support on that directions. In the case of Hong Kong, we just have the funding support from the Life Wide Learning Grant and Artificial Intelligence Lab grant that are quite newly available, before the COVID, and now is available for the school to apply. So I would say that this is more like an opportunity now for the education side to take off.
Yeah, so let's look for opportunities in education. If that is your mission, now is the best time, according to Howard. Anyone else who wants to answer the question, how can they start similar projects at this time of COVID-19? Any opportunities that you are seeing in the horizon?
Yeah, I can take it.
Yes.
Sure. I think there's a host of opportunity and social enterprises that are coming up during this crisis, whether it's, innovative business models of service delivery, product delivery, or even product development themselves. Like we've seen such a new range of products that have been developed under COVID, for COVID, and also otherwise. And I think being in this pandemic situation has given us, shown us the loopholes that we have had in this current system, and principles of circular economy, when because of the waste increase, the plastic waste increase that this pandemic has brought, but also shown that plastic has been an essential material in combating COVID. So it's not like, plastic is evil in all its forms. It's just that we need to understand where best to use it and where not to use it. So I think it has been a learning for many of us, and it has presented a lot of opportunities in a lot of forms. Most importantly, like in the service delivery of items, and Amazon has taken this opportunity very well, but it exemplifies how smaller businesses and innovations can reach the same level, just capitalizing on these opportunities.
Thank you, Kanika. Yes, there's really been a shift in terms of the delivery systems, but as well as I would say for on the aspect of decent work as well. I mean, speaking for our own enterprise, we've seen how different ways of measuring performance and being more open and flexible to different work arrangements so that our people can also have a more balanced lifestyle rather than just looking at the bottom line, offering more work from home options, and also project-based work has really done wonders for quality of life for our teammates. Anyone else who wants to
Uh,
pitch in?
uh, Anna, I think
Yes, sir.
we can start with crowdfunding to educate people, to have a program to educate people, to have uh, small farming, etc., to support them in getting good food and healthy food using the social platform for crowdfunding. I think that's more easier and possible to do during the pandemic era like today. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Yes, we also see that although there's a lot of needs that are coming up, but there's also a lot of generosity and compassion. So crowdfunding is also a very as an emerging platform that we can all tap into. Anyone else who would like to share their thoughts on how we can increase our impact or opportunities that we can capitalize on during COVID-19? If there's none, we'll move on to the next one. This is for Laning. It's from Shah of Bangladesh. How can we replicate your program? We're very much interested for an exchange and to share and gather knowledge with all that you have learned. So this is Shah from Bangladesh. So I think it would be great for you to connect as well.
Actually, I'm really impressed about Chinese participants' presentation. So I want to know here from her whether any scope to replicate this program to any neighboring countries, or the partnering with neighboring countries, or any scope to exchange staff between both the organizations to learning and sharing. Just I want to know. I would love to get this kind of exchange program or partnership to replicate this program in our country, because we are working with the farmers in our country.
Oh, Laning, you're on mute. Maybe you can unmute yourself. There you go.
Yeah. I'm very happy to learn that you're interested. I'm also quite excited with the exchange program. If you see the youth, they're learning insights and cultural exchange with the rural communities. It's quite kind of excited to see their changes, understanding the rural culture in different countries, and motivated by the rural village. For replication, we're in the first 2-year stage, and is also hoping then to expand to the other countries, but it depends on the financial human power in place. But I think we are also looking at the short-term exchange program, hoping we can connect in the near future.
Okay.
And there's quite a lot of other organizations as well. We can mobilize that for doing.
Thank you so much, Laning. There's
Thank you.
a follow-up question for you. Is there any difference between the model village concept and the rural revitalization concept, which you presented? And have you done any cost-benefit analysis if there is a difference that you can see? Laning, that's questions for you as well.
I just explain from my understanding. Yeah. I will just respond from my understanding. For us, we realized that the low cost of rural village governance and rural livelihood activities managed by the local people. So that's why rural vitalization is aiming to build a very strong localized system embedded with their local culture and build on their local system heritage from history. So it's a low cost, but if we introduce a kind of system from outside, it's costly and also dependent on external resources. So rural vitalization is really looking at the self-governing, self-managed rural community. So this is low cost. Compare when you talk about a model village, actually the model here we talk about is really localized experience, localized institution for rural revitalization, but it's not talking about heavily invested. Of course, we also see many model village in China for beautiful village and all this, and with quite intensive investment from the government or from the external capitals. And this helpful for that village per se, but for replication, which is quite challenging. So we are looking at community-based, community-built rural revitalization process, which could shared experience could be shared and replicated by different local people. Yeah, I hope this is answered the question. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Lanying. It's really about listening and not a one size fits all. One model for one area is not going to be the same as another one, but perhaps the model of listening and really seeing the wisdom, the local wisdom, as you say, and the revitalization is coming from the ground up, if my understanding is correct.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. We have another question. Do you experience problems with your government in terms of rural revitalization as an initiative coming from the local people, or has there been mostly a supportive position for local knowledge for rural revitalization?
I think this is a question again towards me. Is it?
Yes, it is,
Hello?
Lanying. It is for you.
Yeah. I think if we talk about 20 years ago, probably there's a small group like Rural Reconstruction Network had initiated this rural reconstruction process for rural revitalization. But 20 years later now, as I mentioned in my PPT, in the year 2017, there's a national strategy for rural revitalization. So now it becomes of all dimensions, bottom up, top down process for rural revitalization. So social mobilization in all sectors, local elite initiated, farmer organizational initiated, even designer, because we're talking about ecological design for rural revitalization as well. So a lot of designers are motivated to go to the rural areas to support, to help the agricultural products designing packaging or designing the library. So there's a lot of participation from different social groups now. Yeah.
That's very encouraging. And you're saying also even the young people are also now showing a great interest in rural revitalization. So that's really great news. Are there any last minute questions? There's one more question to all. How do we navigate with the global market integration in relation to our advocacy to promote social enterprises among local people? This is directed to everyone. Anyone can answer, and then perhaps if there are no more questions after that, we'll move on to your messages to the whole group. Question is, how do we navigate the global market integration in relation to our specific advocacy to promote social enterprises among local people?
I just add a few comments.
Sure, go ahead, Howard.
of course, I speak from the technology side, but in the case of artificial intelligence, I always see that as a sugar coating, because sometimes when you want to navigate on the global arena, you better find a term that will draw the attention. But that is just a term, is more like a door that you can open it. But the content and the substance inside that you can navigate them into the social intelligence part, in the case of AI and SI that I'm representing. So AI just draw the attention, but SI is the substance that you want them to get into. This is how you navigate them from one keyword into another content that you want them to know more. So I guess in the global context, we have to be watchful for the latest term and trends that are happening, and somehow relay that and connect the dots to the social entrepreneurship or social enterprise content that they can relate that to. I guess this is another way to make that connection.
Thank you. Anyone else who wants to weigh in on the question? Pak Nasir?
Oh, yes, Anna, I agree with Howard, but we have to deliver the mission that you are what you share. The more you share, the more you get. And we believe that what we share with others is making more benefit for them. It means make more benefit for us, actually. That's non-technical, but it is the value of social enterprise. I think that's all. Thank you, Anna.
You are what you share. That is something that we shall take note of. I think it applies in so many aspects, not just social enterprise.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is there another question? As educators, we are quite anxious of the development of technology. Okay, these are the teachers, I suppose, and artificial intelligence that might replace our profession. As teachers with automation, we are for development, but not a development that will benefit only a few. Howard, would you like to reassure some of us who might think that we are becoming obsolete with the coming of AI?
You know, that is always a great questions that I always think about when I start to promote AI. You know, that is why I put SI next to it, because SI is the reminder for everyone that AI is just a tool. No matter how powerful it is, no matter how complicated it is, the neural networks and all these kinds of technology nowadays can still not match with the complicated brains of our human beings. So that is more like the questions of what is the dangers of computer when Steve Jobs trying to market computer to the world, right? So now AI is more like in the same context, but at that particular time, they consider computer or AI is just like a bicycle. It still depends on people who rise on it. I think the people who rise on it will take that into the chapter that is all about, you know, what is the ethical standard, the ethical issue related to it. I guess we can better shape the discussions down the road, as long as we are watchful for this development.
Absolutely. The teachers will always be there to shape character, to show compassion and kindness, and also creativity and all of these things that is really some of the most important things that makes the world go round. All right. Is there anyone else with a burning question that's not on the chat box that they would like to direct to our esteemed panel of speakers? Okay, if not, then I will bring the focus on them as they give us their final words. Perhaps, Pak Nasir, you'd like to start with a message in terms of building back fair and how social enterprises can really contribute in this time where there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of missions are accelerating. Pak Nasir, your message?
Yes. What we first know is the the sharky economy. That's the bigger corporation eating the smaller corporation, that we have to make the world more peaceful. Then we need more value in business. So the social enterprise means making the business with value of social. That's, I think, Anna.
Thank you, Pak Nasir. Kanika, your message?
I think especially this pandemic coming into play and exposing the basic infrastructure and amenities that so many in our countries don't have today, it has given people the sentiment of trying to support people and trying to construct a better way of life that is more balanced. And that's why I think it's the very right time for social enterprises to come into the mainstream and become competitive. And that's why we need to strengthen our advocacy efforts as well as our market efforts, so that we can compete in global markets and not just, become a secondary movement.
Great, thank you, Kanika. Laning? Laning, your message, your final message?
Rural revitalization asks us to be back to our roots. Social enterprise will be a very effective means for us to create a system, to really create a very localized economy, which is resilient to the pandemic or disasters and climate change.
Thank you.
Let's do action on that.
Thank you, Laning. And Howard?
Yeah, I always use a quote to mention the work that I do in social enterprise is called chopping your own wood, and it will warm you twice. This is how you create a double impact by a natural ecosystem. Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you. I hope that through this plenary session, we were able to excite everyone to now really join the platforms that we have discussed. Again, I would just like to summarize. We have Health for All. This is the platform that is being convened by Dompet Dhuafa, Health for All. Next is Decent Work for All in Sustainable Value Chains, wherein Kanika is also a co-convener. We have Laning heading Rural Revitalization, Youth and Social Entrepreneurship. And finally, with Howard, we have technological innovations towards sustainable development. So there are going to be sub-plenaries for those platforms. I hope that you choose one or choose more than one where you're very passionate about, and let's get ourselves organized to be able to respond to the growing need that we see in the world today. Yes, we will be making copies of the presentations available, I believe, if that's okay with the panelists, that we can share those. Thank you all for joining us. We went a bit over time, but I hope that it was worth it for you to be in this session. Thank you to all the panelists. It's been a very rich session.
Thanks, Anna. You have been a great host.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
moderator. Yeah.
So we are going.
Thank you, Kanika. Thank you, Laning. Thank you, Howard. And Pak Nasir, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are joining the sub-plenary now. Okay, see you.
See you.